All right, we are back once again with the show. It's Gerald coming right back at you here. Well, it is that time again. Come April, pretty much every year now, what it seems, the world of sports entertainment just explodes into a huge extravaganza. There are pro wrestling matches galore during the first week of April right now, going nonstop all over the place. But it all leads into the marquee event of the year for professional wrestling and sports entertainment, because you've got to say sports entertainment when it comes to the WWE. And that is WrestleMania 35, taking place in New York this year. And here with me today are two awesome guys that are going to go ahead and break down as best we can WrestleMania 35. Ah, Schubert. Timing of my co-host. Always timing of my co-host. He's going to be like, what you doing, man? I'm like, I'm going to be interviewing, man. What are you doing? I'm calling you, man. Well, you know what, man? You just interrupted my interview. At least my opening, per se. But it is WrestleMania 35 taking place in New York, and I have two awesome guys here to help me break it down. They are the guys behind the Heavyweight Chumps podcast. You got to check out all their great shows with a detailed lineup of awesome guests today on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and over 30 different podcast outlets, because similar to ours with Podbean, they're just all over the place. It is some awesome guys indeed. Just want to give a big shout out to them right now, Maddox and Devin from the Heavyweight Chumps podcast. Guys, it's just great to have you on the show. And I want to ask you real quick before we say hellos and whatnot. Is it true, the rumor that people are born, live, and die during the course of WrestleMania?
There's enough matches this year that's absolutely possible.
It is possible, because it is, well, rumors. There's a second rumor that it is actually longer than Avengers Endgame. So I'll tell you that's just barely. I'm just kidding when I say it. But it is about 7-8 hours long, if I'm not mistaken. And my goodness, it's a full day indeed. But
that's wrestling overload.
It is. It's going to be wrestling exhaustion.
And that's part of the issue I would have with it. And maybe spread it out over a 2-day, 3-day period like they do already with NXT TakeOver. They have the Hall of Fame and whatnot. But I understand everybody on the roster wants to be a part of WrestleMania. Back in the old days, it was because of the payouts, because of the sheer number of buy rates and whatnot. But since pay-per-view is really not as much, as I say, important when it comes to cable buy-ins and whatnot, and now it's all about the numbers when it concerns the WWE network, it's a different story, but still there's a specialness of WrestleMania that's there. I want to ask you guys first, and whoever wants to start first, go ahead. Your thoughts on the card as a whole, reading through the Bible of 50,000 matches that are actually there on the card itself. Your thoughts on whether or not it's shaping up to be a memorable WrestleMania or one we'd rather soon forget.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm still on the fence.
I agree with you on that, because I know it's being headed up, and thank goodness it's about time. The main event will be the women's championship match. It's a winner take all type match with both singles titles on the line between Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Ronda Rousey. That, I think, is going to be a really solid match. But after that, it's touch and go on a lot of stuff, including what we see with Brock Lesnar and Seth Rollins.
Well, the women's match is the only one with a proper build-up right now.
Well, no. The Kofi...
Well, the Kofi
match with Daniel Bryan's had the proper build-up, but it feels a lot like the build-up they did with Daniel Bryan trying to get his first world title match, get his WrestleMania moment not too many years ago.
I agree with you on that.
Especially with him calling Kofi a B-plus player on the air, which is the exact term Triple H referred to Daniel Bryan as.
That's correct. Great memory on that. You're right. Vince McMahon, as he was heading out for an episode of SmackDown, once it had been confirmed that I believe the New Day went through the entire gauntlet match and actually won the spot for Kofi Kingston, because Kofi Kingston in storyline had been constantly just messed with as far as in his opportunity to get a title shot with Daniel Bryan. And Daniel Bryan, who is now playing a heel, aka bad guy, is trying to do everything to circumvent that. Kofi does have a lot of popularity and power behind him right now when it comes to the fans. Do you see him finally breaking through? Because this reminds me of when he actually had some momentum earlier in his WWE career, when he actually defeated Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and for a time he was considered to be at or near the top of the roster card.
I think, in all honesty, that if I'm looking at the New Day, Kofi wouldn't have been my single star. I think Big E was the one that I feel could have done it and still left you with a tag team that would have been viable on the scene to work against the Usos and things of that nature. Kofi, to me, feels like he's going to go over. He's going to get the belt. But my money says that he's going to be nothing more than a transitional champion, and he's going to be an afterthought.
Which would be a shame, because obviously he's worked very hard. He's been very loyal to the company, and he's had a lot of great matches and exciting moments that fans all over the world have appreciated. I think you're right. In storyline, it probably won't go without saying that the happy ending in this case has to be done, especially with all the alludements to what has happened in the past with Daniel Bryan's own character, and then everything else that has gone on and all the trials and tribulations that Kofi Kingston has had to go through in order to try and even get this WrestleMania match together. Your thoughts on Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins for the Universal Championship? I see it as kind of underwhelming, and it just seems like it's not even anywhere close to being in the spotlight itself.
Right. I'm afraid it's going to be Brock walks out with the title, and they're just saving it for Roman again to be that top guy, even though the WWE Universe booed him enormously. Yeah.
And obviously that's the case with his health. It's great to see him back on the scene, seeing him back a part of the WWE roster, being cancer-free at this point in time. It's great that that's the case. But you're right. Roman Reigns has always been that champion that just is polarizing for one reason or another. And it just seems like maybe that's not would be a good choice. That wouldn't be a good choice down the road. Braun Strowman's been sitting there, and now he gets relegated to Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal with all the other individuals that are out there that are left over on the card. Your thoughts on Braun Strowman, who looked so good and so primed a year ago to take that top spot and to meet up with Brock Lesnar at this point in time, all of a sudden his career changing, partly due to injury, but partly because the WWE, I just think, is making a mistake and looking at a different direction.
I'm trying to figure out who Braun pissed off to lose his spot.
He doesn't have any arrests, so I don't know. No. I don't know why.
I'm going to look at this from a different perspective. Number one, I don't agree with you that Brock's going to walk out with the belt.
Okay.
I think they're going to put the belt on Seth because he has never gotten the proper WrestleMania moment to leave with a title where he felt like he earned it. And Vince likes to make a champion that will be a long-term at Mania. I also think that if the rumors of he and Becky dating being involved backstage are true, I could see Becky and he both walking out as the two new faces of the company. As far as Braun Strowman goes, Braun was primed to have been in the WrestleMania main event last year, and he somehow ended up in a tag team match with a kid.
I remember that.
They are. A friend of mine actually put it to me like this when I asked him. We had this conversation not too long ago, and he goes, "Why are they giving him the Big Show treatment?" And they're right. They're making him a comedy bit.
And it's a shame, too, because I think he has a lot of people still behind him, even to this day. His performance last year, where you're right, he did win with the kid to win the tag team titles. Even though it was trying to go ahead and get him over as a monster, it has not helped to the point where it just seems like he's going to get lost in the shuffle. And if that's the case, that's truly a shame, because of all the things that he could right now bring to the table. He's now at that point where he can give you a decent match. he does have that support behind him, and he is perceived by many as being one of the few individuals out there that could legitimately match up with Brock Lesnar in and outside of the ring.
I agree with you. I think you look at them size-wise, I think they would put on a good match. And at this point, I don't think any of us can deny that Brock Lesnar has not looked like he's been in ring shape the entire time of his contract. He looks like he is blown up by the time he gets into the ring. So Braun would, and putting him with Seth works to this degree as well, because they can cover up where Brock is kind of weak right now. The only thing that could draw some major interest into the title match would be, and I don't know how many people out there know, but the current UFC champion, Daniel Cormier, has actually been on the WWE's radar for a announcing position when SmackDown moves to Fox. Could we potentially see Cormier pull a Lesnar out of his hat and show up at Mania to potentially cost him a championship and finally set up that UFC title fight?
That could be the case, because Cormier has made overtures to the fact that his career in the UFC is winding down, and that he will probably not, even if he wins out, he will probably not be staying long term, and he sees retirement coming up in the near future as far as the UFC is concerned. So that could definitely be a possibility. We could even see Rob Gronkowski, because now that he's retired from the NFL, the rumors of him shuffling over to the WWE have gone wild and on overtime. So that could be the case where he does an appearance on WrestleMania 35 as well. Then we have, always on the show, because he has to be on the show, it is Shane McMahon versus The Miz in a Falls Count Anywhere match, a.k.a. the only type of real match outside of a jump off the cage where Shane McMahon can really feel at home and really produce what people will be looking for as a quality match. He's just not great technically, and he never picked up that side of the game, but as a individual stunt artist or someone who likes to do a whole lot of bumps and things of that nature, that he's done very well in that part of it. He's done
for those in the know in the business, that's what we refer to as a spot monkey.
exactly. So that's that he has been, he's worth a few spots at that point in time during a course of a match, but don't ask him to throw a punch. That's not a good sign right there.
He threw a better punch before he came back. What happened?
I don't know. It's still pretty ugly, but I'll leave you with this, guys, on as far as Shane McMahon and The Miz. Is this a feud that I think people want to see, or is this just a point in time? Again, as every year, they seem to stick Shane McMahon in simply because he's McMahon.
I think it's because of the insane bumps he takes. He's their Mick Foley now.
My way of looking at it is this. Look what the matches with Shane did for Kurt Angle early in his career. Look at the match where Shane took multiple suplexes into an area of staging that wouldn't break, and Shane kept telling Angle, put me through it until it breaks. Shane is willing to put his body on the line to make his opponent look good, and I think Miz needs that, because I honestly think Miz has the potential finally to be a main event babyface and move on from the mid-card.
Let's hope that's the case. Obviously, he's got the TV show Miz and Mrs. that just debuted this week. And with that type of success, you could see him vault into a territory which is unfamiliar for him as far as a top-level babyface or fan favorite, as it were, because his term as a fan favorite in the past has not gone over very well. He is a natural heel or bad guy, to say the least. But this could vault him, like you said, into a higher status as far as a fan favorite is concerned. But speaking of Kurt Angle, his retirement match, quote unquote, and I say that loosely because you and I both know in the world of professional wrestling and sports entertainment, there's really no such thing as retirement. But his quote unquote WWE retirement match is against Baron Corbin, which to me is kind of disappointing because there could have been a chance that Rey Mysterio would have been involved, which would have been more entertaining to me. But be that as it may, Your thoughts on Kurt Angle and the legacy he's going to leave behind? I don't think there's any doubt he's not going to win with he's not going to win with either the Angle Slam or the ankle lock and come out a victor in his quote unquote final match.
Yeah, he's going to do the honors, but his career speaks for itself. But giving Baron Corbin the rub, I just don't get Baron Corbin. It should be anybody but.
And Vince seems to have a major crush on Corbin, and I don't understand it.
You and I both.
I would not put that kid in the ring anyway. Honestly, I thought the best thing for him was being a general manager where he did not have to work in the ring and he could actually work on his mic skills, which, let's face it, are still subpar, even though he continues to get the rub and get pushed. And maybe they think that Angle can make the kid, but if they don't change his look, he might as well just get fired and walk right into a TGI Fridays and take a management position.
That's not far too off from what I'm thinking, because how good can you really make something, someone that skilled or lack thereof, per se, in Baron Corbin look in 8 minutes, especially with Kurt Angle in a supposed retirement match? So I see this as
you can't polish a turd.
No, you can't polish a turd indeed. And it just looks like Kurt Angle is going to walk all over him and humiliate him, and I think that's going to be the gist of it. But there are other I'm going to say there are other matches. I was about to say great matches, but there are other matches that are out there on the list. We will cover the main event here in a minute, but I want to talk about the battle royales that are there. Obviously, Braun Strowman and so many other individual wrestlers are going to be a part of it that are not on the main card. Do you give anyone outside of Braun Strowman a chance in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal?
No, not unless there's some kind of screw job.
I agree with you. It's just it just seems like it's set up for a consolation prize for Braun Strowman, and somehow
now, I do have a way that can make this work. You let Braun go over, or almost go over, and you finally bring out Lars.
Well, Lars Sullivan there coming from NXT, that could be a possibility, although I know he's not very well thought of at the moment because of his anxiety issues before his debut in the WWE. I know there was some issues in regards to that, and I know that set him back. How far back? You could only speak to WWE management on that, and I'm not sure they'll give you the right answer as well. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Braun Strowman, I think, is the heavy favorite. And there is betting out there. And the thing that cracks me up is there's actually so much betting on, not as far as winners and losers, but the star count as far as matches, which is so subjective. And, you know, some of them are just really just beyond what actually can be done as far as realistically, especially when it concerns matches like Randy Orton versus AJ Styles, who are two very good wrestlers in their own right, but asking them to do a 4-star match in the middle of this entire card is pretty much asking for way too much.
I'll agree. I mean, it could be the sleeper match, in my opinion, but
they would be given 25 minutes on a SmackDown, but here they'll probably be given only 10.
Yeah, I mean, given the short amount of time, I don't see it.
No, I don't
not
see
in the
it.
least.
No, I don't see it in the least. Once again, I am with Maddox and Devin from the Heavyweight Chumps podcast. You got to catch it today on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and over 30 different podcast outlets. Again, they've got a number of great shows and awesome guests, including one of their most recent, if you're a wrestling fan, the Tennessee stud, Robert Fuller, which I heard and actually was, as he would say back in the days, it was a hoot as far as what he did as far as and what he talked about with the guys there. So, and then also the Cinema Fest that you guys recently attended as well. You devoted several episodes to that one, so I think people should go out of the way to take a look at that one.
We did 5 episodes on the film fests that we ran through. 2 film fests in about a span of a month was a lot of work.
Believe me, I know. And when I've done as far as CES and other events like that, believe me, it is a lot of work. And I E3 and whatnot, I hear you on that. Definitely, indeed, it's just a lot of work. And to go ahead and appreciate the work these guys do, please check out the Heavyweight Chumps podcast as soon as you can on Podbean, and like I said, all those other great outlets. But we still have a little bit more to talk about. The women's battle royal. I'm just mad that Asuka's even in it because Asuka to me is the best women's wrestler on the planet right now at this point in time. And I know Becky Lynch has got all the mojo right now, and she's the man, as she would say. But to me, Asuka is just I don't know. I understand why they made the move that they did to take the title off her. But to relegate her to this so quickly is just very disappointing to me.
Two things on the women's battle royal for me. Number one, I don't mind that Asuka's in there. I can't stand her. She's a solid striker. Her move set, you can't, as an in-ring technician, she's phenomenal. But her lack of ability on promos hurts her. And quite frankly, I hate her ring gear. I just think it looks trashy. It looks cheap. And I think it just doesn't do anything for her. As far as best women on the roster, you have to look to me as far as can match with her in the ring.
Technically, that's why I say I'm not asking for. Yeah, and I agree with you. Obviously, with her mic skills are limited because of the translation and language or whatnot. That's prevented, in my opinion, Shinsuke Nakamura from getting any farther on the roster than he has had. So I agree with you on that.
I think that Io Shirai could be a better hand than Asuka, to be honest.
But I've seen her work. That's not a bad call at all.
But if they're going to pull the trigger, the obvious final two in that battle royal, it needs to come down to Asuka and Shayna Baszler.
There you go. Absolutely. Because Shayna Baszler did light up NXT after Asuka left. She had definitely made her mark in the ring, and she is part of that, I guess, the 4 horsewomen that Ronda Rousey started, and definitely is definitely somebody on the way up as well. So you're right. That could be a situation where it leads to Asuka versus Shayna Baszler, and that could be an excellent couple minutes of work between those two ladies. Speaking of ladies, and I'm going to hit it right now as far as the winner take all match, and the winner gets both world championships for the ladies, and that is Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey, and Becky Lynch. And like I said earlier, she's got all the mojo. I really see no other choice than giving it to Becky Lynch at this point in time, unless you really have something ironclad as far as a contract is concerned with Ronda Rousey.
Well, the way I understand it is Ronda's contract runs up after WrestleMania.
No, she has a 3-year contract.
Oh, she has a 3-year contract.
But there is talk that she's going to take time off after Mania.
Okay.
She's spoken about having children in the past.
They should pull the trigger on Becky Lynch. She's got too much going for her right now. The crowd is too much behind her.
She's the hottest act in the company.
Right. She is stone cold Steve Austin level over. So
she could be if they would push her.
Yeah, all they got to do is pull the trigger Sunday.
And and I agree with you wholeheartedly, 100% on that. That's a great call. I think if you guys were bookers, and that means as far as a booker term is concerned, the guys or gals responsible for actually going ahead and programming the direction for all these wrestlers. If I was booking the WWE right now, yes, I would go all the way with Becky Lynch as far as sending her to the top, giving her both championships, and seeing. To me, I just like the unified championship as one, and just defending it on both shows with one person. But that was just me. That's just how I think.
I agree. And if they're going to do that with the tag belts, then they should do that with the singles title, in my opinion.
I agree.
It doesn't have watered down matches or champions like Naomi that will botch more moves. Granted, I can't say anything about people botching moves as many as Sasha can blow in a match. But It's just the fact that they're going to unify it. The only other thing they could be pushing for is to have Charlotte break her dad's record for number of times as a champion. And at this point, she's already held the women's championship 8 times in less than 3 years. So you keep pushing her like that, she's going to break Rick's record with probably by Mania next year.
And that's the record that the WWE says. The actual unofficial record could be as much as 23 times, with all the times he's dropped the belt in places where, as he said before in the past, where he felt his life was threatened or he felt that it was best for wherever the situation he was in. So there could be, it depends on who you talk to. Some say 18, some say 20, some say 23. It's so funny as far as how many times Ric Flair has actually worn the championship belt. It's just truly funny. But I know how many times WWE has officially said it at, and it wouldn't be surprising and it wouldn't be out of the realm to have Charlotte Flair match that in, or even beat that in no extended terms at some point in time. But I do think you guys are right. Becky Lynch is the hottest thing in the company right now, and to not put her on top in your biggest match, in your biggest main event of the year, is just simply mind-boggling stupid on all sorts of proportions.
You will get no argument from me on that one, sir.
It's just there. The money's there. I mean, you guys and myself, I've been watching wrestling since the very late 70s when I was a small child. And, once I came to know exactly, the entertainment side of it, and you understand what is good for the business and what is not for the business. And with the WWE moving SmackDown into a major network, you have to go ahead and put your best foot forward. And this would probably be the best way at this point in time in doing so. One last thing I want to ask you guys before we head on out with some of the other matches that are there, or actually any of the match in particular. Is there a match you want to see most, and is there a match that is maybe under the radar that you think people need to look out for?
My under the radar match is also the match I'm looking forward to seeing the most. And it's Samoa Joe against Rey Mysterio. I think if they give them 20 minutes, that match could be hard to top.
I agree with you on that, but that's the big if, isn't it, when it comes to WrestleMania?
It really is.
I just want to see if AJ can pull a good match out of Randy Orton. It's been so long since Orton has done anything really relevant.
Other than going through the motions.
Right, other than going through the motions. His matches have all been the same. They've been boring.
I agree with you. He has that certain style that's, I guess, to me, I've called it before in the past, 2.5 star worthy. It's basically there and is done with, and you just want to move on. You forget about it right after it's done, but you realize he's a solid enough wrestler that gets by. And he's always had that type of near or at the top level of persona that I think people just say, hey, he's legit. That's why he's Randy Orton. He's never going to be pushed that far down the ranks just because of who he is. But there's other great matches on there on the card coming up this Sunday, and that includes the WWE Cruiser Championship match between Buddy Murphy and Tony Nese. There's also the Intercontinental match. Remember that belt, the Intercontinental belt? That is going to be Bobby Lashley versus Finn Balor, who's going to be dressing up as the Demon in his.
If he does that as the Demon, that should be a complete squash match.
I agree with you. But the thing is, they gave it away. They just like a Marvel trailer. They give too much away as far as on the previous show, so that was kind of disappointing on that. Disappointed on that. And then other matches included, like we were talking about briefly earlier, Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre. Roman Reigns coming back. The tag team championship for the ladies is Sasha Banks and Bayley versus Nia Jax, Tamina Snuka, Beth versus Beth Phoenix, and Natalya versus the Iconics. And last but not least, the match I think will be under the radar, but I think is going to be given enough time that for, it could be two old guys out there just stinking it up. But I think they're going to pull one out of the hat. I think they're going to surprise us, and that is Batista going back to Guardians of the Galaxy 3 at some point in time, maybe even Endgame, he'll return, versus Triple H in a no holds barred match. I think that one's going to be pretty solid. I think that one's going to go ahead and use a lot of gimmicks to it, and I think that one will be good enough for people to go ahead and be somewhat satisfied with it. You're going to get Triple H from a couple years ago? No. Are you going to get Batista from several years ago? No. But I think you are going to get enough out of those guys to get a solid match. But any other matches stick out to you as far as something that people should look out for?
No, and honestly, I think you are exactly right in the fact that the Batista Triple H match is going to use a lot of gimmicks. And after seeing Triple H in the ring tagging with Shawn Michaels against the Brothers of Destruction at their last Saudi Arabia event, it needs to be heavily gimmicked.
Yeah, don't tell Triple H to pop a quad.
Oh. Well, I mean, it does look like he's been skipping leg day a lot lately.
Oh, that's harsh. That's harsh. But guys, you know what? I tell you what, it's to me going to be several hours. 7-8 hours of wrestling entertainment that's out there, sports entertainment per se, from the WWE at WrestleMania. But are you guys more excited about what's coming up the previous days as far as NXT TakeOver or any of the other great cards that are going to be playing in and around that area of New York within the next few days?
I am more excited for NXT because NXT has not disappointed me with their TakeOver events. And they do the smart thing of keeping them at 2.5 hours at max. They give you a solid 6-match card, which is what we grew up on, 6 matches on a pay-per-view as opposed to 18, and honestly, I think match of the weekend is going to be Johnny Gargano going after the NXT World Title up against Adam Cole.
I agree with you. That's going to be a very, very good match. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at how good those two can work with each other. I think that's a great call. And if you're in the New York area and there are still tickets available to any of the independent matches that are out there, they should go ahead and just check it out because there's going to be a ton of independent cards out there that people need to go ahead and give an opportunity to, because there's going to be a lot of people performing at a top level because they know a lot of eyes are watching, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. And everybody, just about most of the people in the business got started on an indie show. They started somewhere making $5 like just about everybody else.
And keep in mind, AEW is not running an event on WrestleMania during WrestleMania week. Makes you wonder if some of their people are going to be showing up just to kind of scout some talent that might be out there so they can get to it ahead of Vince.
Plus, also, you got to do, I wouldn't be surprised if Kobe and the Young Bucks do make an appearance at least one or two of these shows just to go ahead and keep them in the fans' minds during a big week as far as wrestling is concerned.
You're probably right. They will appear they will at least put in an appearance or a run in on some card. Yeah,
absolutely. Because AAW is something that could be on the horizon that might, I don't want to say it's going to be challenging the WWE, because at this point in time, you guys and I both have seen over the years, so many other entities out there try and match what the WWE has offered. And with only one exception, with the WCW at a limited point in time, was anybody even able to get close to match or even go over what the WWE was producing at that point in time. So it remains to be seen. AAW is funded. It's funded by the Jacksonville owner, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we'll see what kind of money and deep pockets he's going to be willing to go ahead and produce. We'll see what kind of TV shows and cards that they got coming up, because they do have something coming up later in the year. But guys, I want you to come back and we will talk about that, plus the state of the WWE at some point in time down the road when it's convenient for you, because I'd love to have you guys back on the show. But I want to ask you one more question. Why do people need to tune in to your awesome show, The Heavyweight Chumps?
Because there's no two that can bullshit like we do. We can carry. I honestly, I put our interviews up there with a lot of bigger name shows, but we also like to be able to keep the show light enough that a person on our show doesn't feel like they're just there to talk business. We want them to feel like we're having a natural conversation, and that's what we strain for, and it's what we're aiming for, is to continue to put forward a good show, and actually people that will start noticing with episodes that are coming out from us here, especially in the last week or two, that you're seeing some changes to our format. So we're making some additions by subtraction and adding a few changes to what we wanted to do just to keep things fresh. So guys, just if you're out there and you're looking for something to listen to, we've got over 80 episodes in the bank in our back catalog. Tune in, and by all means, if you're looking for us online, follow us on Twitter at MadFatLoud and keep up, because we will post all of our links there. And we appreciate all of you that do tune in, and we appreciate you definitely for having us on. It has been a blast to sit here and talk wrestling with someone who had enough knowledge about it that he could sit here and understand when we said that a match was going to just absolutely stink up the place.
That's true. And there is that possibility anytime you get a WrestleMania, because while there are some definite WrestleMania moments, there's also some WrestleMania moments that people would soon forget that they watched. And that usually happens, both good and bad, when it comes to at least 7 or 8 hours of wrestling entertainment. But
like Big Show's sumo wrestling match,
or exactly. Taker against Giant Gonzalez.
Oh my gosh, I was there live for that match. So
no,
Las Vegas.
You saw JR in a toga. Oh damn.
Yes. Well, actually, I could barely see it from where I was standing. It's where I was sitting, because we were at the very back end of the Las Vegas Caesars Palace Arena, so I could barely see what was going on. And after watching it again later on, a couple days later, as far as the pay-per-view is concerned, I realized I didn't really miss much as far as the live event that was there at that point in time. But let's hope. Well, that's considered one of the worst. That's considered one of the worst WrestleManias. And let's hope WrestleMania 35 does not follow that same path.
Amen. They're back in New York. It's Vince's backyard and has been since they started. So I am imagining, we may not know it yet, but there's going to be something special.
I'm sure there will be, and let's hope that there is, and let's hope it's a good 7-8 hours of watching, and that by the time that it's over, all three of us have not turned into skeletons on our couch.
Oh, I'm planning on a nap somewhere in the mid card.
You and probably a lot of other people as well. Once again, it is Maddox and Devin. They're the great guys from the Heavyweight Chumps podcast. You got to check out their podcast today on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and over 30 different podcast outlets. Guys, it's so awesome to have you on the show. You got to come back and talk more pro wrestling or any other pop culture subject you guys want to talk about with us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos.